and welcome. I am Larry's father, and it's my sad duty today to present story of Larry's life to you and to introduce the various elements of the program as they're outlined on the program. So let me begin with Larry's birth. We're going to do a day-by-day thing here. So week by week, month by month. Well, what do you? Okay. Well, first of all, Larry was late for his arrival. He was scheduled for October, right? And he got here in December.
Yes, sir.
Nancy was very, very tired of being pregnant. The house we lived in, you walked up a set of stairs to get into the main level, and it became harder and harder as time went on. Nancy's mother in Arizona, this is 60 years ago, so air travel wasn't what it is today. Actually flew from Phoenix to San Francisco to see what was going on. And we think it was helpful because we kind of think it scared Larry out because his grandmother was coming. His other grandmother up in Oregon was calling every day. And again, in those days, if you remember, telephones were not what they were today. So she was paying for long distance. Where is that kid? And finally, we got him. We lived in Pacifica near the ocean, and as Larry grew up in the first few years, he enjoyed going down to the beach, playing in the sand, sand buckets, sand toys, and a little bit later, trucks and bulldozers and those sorts of things. I built an O-gauge railroad on a piece of plywood that he played with, and he loved watching the train go around. And when he got bored with that, he loved watching the train hit the truck that he put on the train track and blow it off. And Mrs. Hogue down the street took care of our kids while we both taught, and it was a nice time. Then in 1971, we moved to Santa Rosa. We bought a house. We bought a house just around the corner here with a backyard that goes down to Pollen Creek. And it was a wonderland for Larry as he got older because it had frogs and it had lizards and other things that slinked along the ground, which he captured and put into boxes and jars and things like that in his bedroom. He was very much interested in the fauna of the backyard. Then we bought some laying hens because we were allowed in our rural residential category to have a dozen chickens and 2 horses or 1 horse and 2 pigs or something like that. So we bought some hens and we built a chicken coop. And he became fascinated with chickens. And as he grew older, exotic breeds of chickens that had funny top notches and feathers down their legs and laid green eggs and blue eggs and that sort of thing. And he took them to the fair, and there are a few ribbons over here from his winning in the fair. And then bird flu came, and there were no more chickens at the fair. How did those chickens get here? Well, we mail ordered them from Missouri. And the postman brought this box with holes in it, and inside was chip, 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 and that sort of thing. And opened them, and he loved playing with the chickens. And that probably was his introduction to raptors, because one day he was playing with a chicken in the backyard, sort of herding it around while it was pecking at the lawn, and all of a sudden, swoosh, this bird swooped down and grabbed the chicken and flapped off into the distance with the poor chick dangling from his talons. We suspect that may have been the key that turned him into a raptor lover. I don't know how that matches, but it seems to be the case. Then we build a chicken pen with a cover. We put chicken wire on top of it so that the raptors couldn't come down and grab the chickens. And we discovered possums and skunks and raccoons. And then we built a chicken house on legs so that at night they could go up into the house and not worry about the raccoons and the possums and the skunks and the other things that lived in the creek bed. Got to scroll up here. Larry's teachers over here at Hidden Valley School always had fresh eggs, even though they were multicolored and sort of small rather than the big ones that you used to be able to buy at Safeway. Then he found the Bird Rescue Center, which is a short walk from our house around the corner down Sinead. And he began to hang out over there and volunteering and helping. His interest in raptors grew as he worked with the resident birds that they had, the ones that were damaged by being hit by a car or something like that, broken wings, and they couldn't be released into the wild. So they kept them and kept them alive. And one of Larry's jobs at the rescue center was mice. Do I need to go into the details of what raptors eat? But he also worked his way up to the place where he went to schools and other locations with raptors and held them on his arm and showed them to the students. And then when his children began to come here to Hidden Valley School, he arranged for classes to walk over to the Raptor Center where they were taught about raptors, and they were allowed to hold raptors on their arms. And that brings up to school. When we moved here in 1971, this was a bare piece of land. Everything was bare all the way out there. For those of you who are local, Hidden Valley Drive was there, but it was only built up about halfway. So we were just in the middle of a bunch of fields. And so Larry attended Lewis Elementary School for grades 1, 2, and 3. And finally, in the 4th grade, they brought a bunch of portable buildings up here and put them in, and Larry then became a Hidden Valley student. He's credited with naming the mascot for this school, which is the Hawks. He loved the school, and he was proud when his 3 sons also attended here. Larry moved to Santa Rosa Junior High for grades 7 and 8, following his sister Lori. His grades were good, but unfortunately his 8th grade year involved the Santa Rosa teachers' strike, which interrupted his attendance for a long period of time, since his parents, teachers themselves, sided with the faculty in their little battle with the school board over minor pay and benefits. And we homeschooled him as best we could, but he was very happy to spend the nice days out in that backyard with the chickens and the lizards and the frogs and the other things that were out there. Larry then moved to Santa Rosa High School, and along with math, English, social sciences classes that he really didn't enjoy, Larry enjoyed the animal science and the woodshop classes that he took. We've brought one of his woodshop projects over there, the boomerang is over there. We have a bread box and actually a nightstand that he manufactured in the wood shop. Okay, now I'm doing a flashback to pretend like this is a movie, to a younger Larry and his grandmother Broderick. We lived on Hilltop Drive outside of Eugene, Oregon, in a house that overlooked the valley, and at the bottom of the valley was the main line of the Southern Pacific Railroad. So Larry loved going up to his grandmother's house. She took each of her grandchildren for a week during the summer, and the first thing they did on the way home from the airport where they were picked up was to stop at a grocery store and walk in, and Grandma said, what did she say, Becky?
Anything you want.
Anything you want. And so she went home with a load of soda pop and candy and
Chili.
Pickles, canned chili, I don't know. Whatever her grandchildren wanted. Larry loved the place because he could look out and see the mainline Southern Pacific trains going back and forth. And the bottom of the property, there was a sort of an abandoned highway that ended at the railroad. So he would walk down and watch the trains close up. His grandmother encouraged that and also drove him to rail yards and to places, overlooks where he could see trains curve around things. And he had a camera, and she provided the film, and he took lots and lots of pictures of trains. When we were driving anywhere near a railroad, a passing train meant stopping. Several trips on the skunk train from Fort Bragg to Willits and back, especially one with his cousin Andy from the East Coast, were highlights. We have pictures of Larry and Andy in the steam locomotive cab during the halfway picnic stop on the trip. Getting in to drive the train trumped a hot dog and chips that day at least. He collected model locomotives, especially diesel EMD electric locomotives, and rolling stock, lots and lots of cars, particularly flat cars and box cars and tank cars and things like that. Should I say birthday and Christmas gifts along the way there? And then I'm going to skip here to football. In junior high school, he participated in the Police Athletic League, PAL, and Pop Warner football. So he was about yay tall, and his number was 75. And he was a proud lineman, hunching down and throwing his body across the imaginary line. And when he came home, he was proud of the strikes on his helmet, where his helmet had crashed into another one. So if his was yellow, there would be a red streak or 3 or 4, and it was sort of like badges of honor. He also was proud of the stains on his pants because it showed that he had gotten down and done it. We were a little bit alarmed, but it went on. We drove to games in Lower Lake, Ukiah, and the infamous overnight to Fort Bragg, where we got to sleep on the basketball court floor, while the boys from about a dozen football teams did what they did all night, which didn't involve much sleeping. There was a lot of stuff going on. But when he got to Santa Rosa High School, he did not play football because there was a hair rule. The coach had a hair rule, and Larry's hair, it was his pride, and he would not cut his hair to meet the football coach's standards. So he did not play football. After graduation, Larry began taking classes at Santa Rosa Junior College, which included wildlife conservation, where he met Professor Peter Levesque, a good friend of mine, and a wonderful instructor. who introduced him to birding and mentored him in his early birding days. Wildlife, okay, got that. Back to music. Instead of football, he got interested in music. Larry became interested in music, especially in drumming, and especially in the heavy metal brand of music of the day. We'd hear he had a drum kit in his bedroom, and the door wasn't that thick. So all night, all evening, late into the night, we would hear drumming and cymbaling and the music that he was playing along to accompany what he was doing. There may be some of Larry's music friends here. Anybody here from one of his bands? Good. Well, good, because I'm going to say Nancy and I learned more about heavy metal music than we needed to learn. My hearing aids I wear today may be the result of the. And then they played local venues, including the River Theater down in Guerneville and a whole bunch of places. One of the bands was called Bleeding Stone, but I think the one that was a favorite was Wasted Morality. I think I saw them get one of those awards on that television show where they hand out music awards to those. No. Larry would not let us come to his shows. He specifically said, don't. We said, we'd like to come and see you. And he specifically said, don't. And then there was the national tour with his bandmates. They hooked up with some promoter who got them booked into venues in various places in Texas and across the United States. We helped them buy an old van, and it had enough room in it for all of their instruments and amplifiers and stuff like that, and off they went. It turned out that in order to have their show, they needed to get there a day early and sell tickets. So they had to sell a certain number of tickets before the show would go on. And I think they ended up buying some of the tickets because they were sleeping in the van and cooking in the van and that sort of thing. And somewhere on the East Coast, the van gave up, and we sent Larry an airline ticket, and he shipped his drums back by UPS or something. The van may be still sitting somewhere in Hoboken or Peoria or someplace like that. I don't know. Then I got to scroll here. But that didn't deter him, and he continued playing music and singing. Did I mention he was a vocalist? And that his drum kit is stored in a shipping container just outside our house. Had to support himself a little bit, so he got into cooking. He started working in restaurants, including, for those of you who are local, Pizza World, the Good Earth Restaurant, Santa Rosa Bar and Grill, Mary's Pizza Shack, and Ca Bianca. We supported him with Christmas and birthday gifts, including sets of knives and uniforms, and eating out at those restaurants as much as possible to keep them in business. They had a habit of closing. Looking for a more secure job, Larry got a job at AVE, which was the predecessor of, Medtronic bought AVE. AVE was an early the stent business. They were very early in the stent business, and they invented if I remember the story, a stent that was impregnated with the kind of medicine, anti-rejection medicine, so that when it was inserted, it didn't come popping out because the body said, "I don't want that." But Medtronic was acquired by Medtronic acquired AVE. And I'm going to get back to that again. I know I'm skipping around. I'm going to get back to Medtronic because there's someone in the front row that's very important to that story. I'm going to go back to birding. So here we are. Larry began driving down to Hawk Hill at the Marin Headlands, where he joined dozens of other birders observing raptors on their journeys north and south in the flyway. He also began visiting the Klamath Falls eagle sites in southern Oregon, bringing dozens of pictures of eagles perched on telephone lines, tree branches, or just walking around in the snowy ground. He began also to take people up there to show them this fantastic collection of bald eagles that you could just walk out and look at. Larry's birding expertise was largely self-taught, and for several years, the trips to Marin and the mentoring he received there were critical to his education. He absorbed the knowledge, listening carefully. Birthday and Christmas presents switched to binoculars, cameras, and birding gear. All of this knowledge was put to great use when he joined Sonoma and Solano bird groups. These included the West County Hawk Watch, a citizen scientific group, the Madrone Audubon Society, and others. This led to being a bird tour guide for the Sonoma Land Trust and the Solano Trandless. And I know there are birders here. We got birders here. Good. I'm a little nervous here because if I talk about things that happened when he was a little kid, there's nobody here to tell me. Uh-oh, I have a daughter who's going to tell me. When I get into birding, I'm on shaky ground because I'm going to make some mistakes. A tour guide for Sonoma Land Trust and Solano Land Trust, true? Okay. Along the Sonoma coast, the Lynch Canyon, Tubbs Island, American Canyon, Grizzly Island, and other locations where raptors gather in the North Bay area. Larry was the founder of the Jenner Headlands Hawk Watch, where he was a day leader and co-manager. When the Headlands opened to the public, Larry was first among the guides leading birders into this wonderland of birds. They were gracious and had a ceremony for Larry up there at their birding place. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, and if you ever have an opportunity to take a walk and look at birds and have a little stamina, I really encourage you to think about it. He introduced hundreds of people to birding, particularly raptors. There are dozens and dozens of tributes to his birding on his Facebook page and on Semei's Facebook page. I'm going to read two. This says, Larry was a deeply appreciated member of our Madrone Audubon Board of Directors. He embodied strong ethic and conservation standards to all of our activities and decisions to protect birds and our environment. This world will be smaller without Larry's presence. The spirit world has received an ally. Larry loved his family so much. May his spirit visit often. And then another from Semei's Facebook. I have never met Larry in person. He was my online raptor consultant. He was my walking raptor Bible. I'm sure during the sharing part of today's celebration, there will be others. Others sharing birding experiences that they had with Larry. Back to the Medtronics. At Medtronic, he met Samay. Larry was working there making stents, and the job included several trips to Galway and Ireland, where he made stents that were European approved. But back in Santa Rosa, he met Samay, and they fell in love. They were married in Reno in a civil ceremony, and then several years later in a very elaborate Cambodian marriage ceremony at their house, and and then a dinner down at Rohnert Park, complete with Cambodian clothing, a Buddhist monk, and a joyous time by everyone who attended. Larry and Samay have 3 wonderful boys, LJ, Preston, and Tyler. Larry loved his kids and supported them. He organized walks for their classes to the Bird Rescue Center, where they learned about raptor, spent uncomfortable nights supervising boys at the 4th grade outdoor education trip. I'm being upstaged. Where was I? Supervising boys at the 4th grade outdoor education trips that each 4th grade class takes. As a Cub Scout leader in his Cub Scout uniform, leading the Pledge of Allegiance and trying to control a bunch of scouts who are more interested in a lot of other things than being at a scout meeting. Mostly the play equipment out, and the meetings were in the room next door here, and so they could just go from there to the play equipment, and there were balls and to kick around, and it was hard to keep everybody on task in terms of saying the Pledge of Allegiance right. See, where was I here? The Cub Scout, the duties also leading the rain gutter sailboat race. Each kid had a little sailboat with a little plastic sail on it, and they set up troughs of water, and you put the boat down here, and then you take a straw, and you blow the boat down to the other end of the, and there's 2 of them, so you're racing. It's in a room with a floor. What could go wrong? The cleanup afterwards usually took longer than the event, mopping up water and that sort of thing. The Pinewood Derby, which occurred here in this gymnasium, a nice long track that went up, and you put your cards at the top, and they race down, and because we live in the shadow of what was then Hewlett-Packard, there's a very elaborate electronic finishing device down here that takes it down to the 1,000th of a second as the car passes the finish line. And one other thing, and just those meetings. LJ is a junior at Santa Rosa High School and is enrolled in the Art Quest drama program. Those of you who are local might recently have seen LJ's picture in the Press Democrat or other places, because the play that they presented just before Christmas got censored by the school, canceled. So LJ and his friends went down to, they got the Cinnabar Theater in Petaluma to provide a place. So they went down, they put their play on in Petaluma to 2 sold-out audiences, and came home. And came home with $3,500 in donations, as opposed to the $30 or $40 they would have picked up if it school and let him go on. It didn't end with that. His group just went to a statewide drama festival in Sacramento, where LJ presented a monologue and others presented their parts, and they wrote a play that they put on. So among 74 statewide high schools, they have the trophy for his place. By the way, the play was a satire on high school censorship. He also is on the track team, where he participates in the high hurdle and in relay races. Preston is a freshman at Santa Rosa High School. While he was in junior high school, he was a 7th grade class president, and as an 8th grader, he was the student body president. We're really proud of and Tyler, sitting up here, is in the 6th grade here at Hidden Valley School and is a marimba player. He belongs to several marimba groups, including Grita, which is a group of students from other schools in Santa Rosa. And as a 6th grader, he stands up here and plays his marimba next to a high school senior. You're going to hear them a little bit later in the program. Wonderful music. The folks who are in charge of it are just about the best in the world when it comes to working with young people. It's a wonderful opportunity for Tyler. Okay, Samay was the love of Larry's life. Their marriage brought Samay into our family, and she is the love of our life, our second daughter. And she brought along her sisters and brothers and their spouses and all those wonderful prom cousins. When Larry and Samay had family gatherings at their house, the family filled the pool and the house, and it was a wonderful time, and they will continue to have those times because they're a very close family, a very loving family, very caring family. Larry and Samay provided their children with opportunities to learn and have fun. There were multiple trips to the ocean, multiple trips to Disneyland, Legoland, Six Flags, other amusement parks, places like that. In the past several years, as Nancy and I have aged into our 80s, Larry began checking on us on a regular basis to make sure we were okay. Last summer, when I spent a month sailing from Hawaii to Japan, Larry made sure that his mother was safe every night. Phone calls, visits, that sort of thing. Oh, and we have a good supply of emergency flashlights, several fire extinguishers, and a fire blanket, just in case. He suggested he could demonstrate the fire blanket, but we said, let's just leave it. I think we can do it. Let's leave it in the pack. He was a wonderful son, and he will be sorely missed. But he will live in our memories, and that's the end of my narrative. We'll move on to the next part of the program. And the next part of the program is an opportunity for members of Larry's family to come up and share a moment of their time with him if they care to. The word is you got to keep your face close to the microphone. So I'll get out of here and I'll let others come up if you care to. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Larry's uncle, and I have the hat to prove it. I can't, I don't know, there's not much left to add at this point. I think the only things that I might mention are the fact that Pat and Nancy were even allowed Larry to play contact sports. Really? Okay. Because Pat, we were not allowed to do that. Grandma Broderick that you heard about, one of her rules was no contact sports and no motorcycles. You're going to get out of the house with your head and your knees intact. But anyway, I hear he was great at it, and I wish I had been on closer by so that I could have participated more in those years of his life. But I was on hand for what Pat described to you as his visits to Hilltop Drive with his grandmother when we were in Eugene. I am from Eugene. And my wife and I, Jane. And I remember going down to the railroad with Larry, even in later years, or along about 1980 or so. I'm also in a band, and he was there with Grandma B, and we were practicing, and he went in with me, and we practiced, and I thought I was making a grand demonstration of what you could do as a musician. Well, it comes, as you will probably find out from the other folks that were playing with him, he did much more than I probably accomplished, because I never went on tour. So, at any rate, just wanted to say that, like I say, Pat's covered it pretty much, but all I know is that Larry was a fine man. He loved his family, all the way from his grandma to his kids. I wish I had been closer so that I could have been more a part of his life, but what I'm seeing is going to live on, and hopefully we can make that happen more. But thank you all for coming today. It's a day that we should really relish and hope that we could aspire to what Larry was. So thank you.
I can't do it. So he's going to.
All right, you have to pretend that I'm Lori, because I can't change all the words. I'm Larry's big sister. When I was... We didn't really think about this. All right. When I was 3.5 when Larry was born. As children, I was his protector, playmate, confidant, boss, and sometimes battering ram. As adults, we lived very separate lives in separate parts of California, with timelines that just didn't meet up in terms of when we married and when we had our families. The pandemic didn't help this separateness, and it was only recently that we once again began to spend time together. I thought I'd share a few memories of Larry's big sister, particularly times when it felt like me and Larry against the world. Larry and I were raised in an era where kids played outside all the time. No cell phones, but I did have a Winnie the Pooh watch, of course, so I knew when I had to be home. I have more memories of us and the things we did in Pacifica and Santa Rosa than we have time to really listen to today. Big wheels and metal-wheeled skates on Monteverde Road in Pacifica, red light, green light, and school next to Pacifica House, running through the eucalyptus forest behind the house, Tonka trucks and Barbies and trolls and dirt forts, playing Army in the fields that are now Hidden Valley Park and the suburb where Larry's family lived, and riding our bikes endlessly. Last night, my cousin Max drove me through Hidden Valley, and I remembered fondly, as I do every time I drive through Hidden Valley, the hours Larry and I spent flying down the big hill on our Stingray-style bikes, without helmets, of course, our hair flying out behind us, yelling to one another about how fast we were going, and then riding out the speed at the bottom, only to push those bikes back up the hill in the heat of the summer and do it all over again. And again and again and again. It was me and Larry against the world. free to be outdoors, using our bodies and our bikes to create a thrilling roller coaster ride of our own. As young adults in our 20s, Larry and one of his friends, Jim, and I drove to Yosemite in early June to camp and hike Half Dome. I think June 6th it was. At this point, Jim's and mine, outdoor experience was not as well honed as it is today. And we woke up to a brewing storm, but we decided to hike anyway. And though we were not prepared in any way, shape, or form. Hiking Half Dome is a huge physical commitment, about 18 miles round trip in the best of weather. It rained on us the entire ascent of the valley until it turned into snow, and it grew increasingly cold and wet. But don't worry, although we had no rain gear, we're using our spare socks as mittens. And by the time we got to the section of the hiking that was rough overland approach to the cables, we were struggling and it was really snowing. It was kind of whiteout conditions up there. We had absolutely no business being up there, and it was truly not safe for us to be there, but we didn't really know that.
You don't usually.
No. Larry began a panicked mantra about how we were all going to die. I do recall the F word being used liberally. I moved into big sister mode, turned around, reached up from my 5'4" height, took him by his over 6 foot shoulders, looked sternly at him, and shook him hard. I don't know what I said, but I used my mom voice and took charge of the role as older sister, and I was well practiced in it. I told him to knock it off. Follow me, we're going to be okay. It was me and Larry against the world. Shortly after I had Michaela, Larry and my parents came to visit. Larry and I took a short day trip out to a place called Seacliff Beach for a walk. I was still in the very early stages of new mom sleep deprivation. What in the world did I just do to my life? So this particular memory felt almost like I was in a scene of a movie. Larry and I walked out onto the fishing wharf that extends hundreds of feet over the Pacific, where we saw a seagull limping. I watched in sleep-deprived as this real amazement of my brother captured the seagull and unwrapped the fishing line that was wound around its leg. Foot. The grace and ease with which he gently corralled that seagull was like watching an episode of Caesar Milan. Yeah, Caesar Milan's Dog Whisperer, but the seabird whisperer. It was me and Larry against the world as I watched him save this bird. You ready to take that, Colin?
I can try.
Go.
Okay. Let's see. The final memory I'll share was just 5 days. Well, I'm not sure, Jim. It was just 5 days prior to Larry's death. For the first time since the pandemic, we had a family Christmas day at my parents' house, where 4 generations met up for the first time. During the day together, Larry and I, now 59 and 62, realized for the first time that we shared a commonly misunderstood neurological disorder called misophonia. Misophonia. We both have an incredibly decreased tolerance to specific sounds. In our case, it is the sounds people make when they are chewing, or eating, or slurping their coffee. We literally have to get up and move out of the room sometimes when someone is crunching chips, slurping coffee, or popping gum. It's not that we're just intolerant people, but there is actually a psychological reaction that we shared. We talked about this, like little knives poking from the inside of our bodies to our skin. We were both surprised that we have this same strong negative emotional, physiological, and behavioral response to chewing. I didn't know that about him. It was our last day together. I explained that our cousin Melissa, I'm bringing you up all, yeah? Well, our cousin Melissa was bonded to us with the same thing. Interestingly, I now see a genetic link we share because my cousins Max and Renee also share this issue. I don't know. Can I just say that our family had a field day teasing us on that family Christmas day? They used misophonia, Mr. What? Some of them crunched loudly at us. Larry and I got to good-naturedly share being the butt end of lots of laughter and good nature teasing that day as our final us against the world. The last memories I have of Larry are once again the two of us against the world as siblings. It's a unique relationship, sharing our special bond of being brother and sister. Well, perfect.
So I'm Jeff, one of Larry's cousins from his uncle Larry. We grew up in Oregon, in Bend, and Pat and Nancy would bring Lori and Larry up often over the summers or over Christmas, and we would come over from Bend and have family get-togethers in Pleasant Hill. And as Pat talked about, upslope was their house, and then down at the bottom of the little valley was the Southern Pacific Main Line. And when you're like 4 or 5 years old and your cousin Larry is 6 years older than you, he's practically an adult. I mean, he has 2 digits in his age. Yeah. But both of us liked trains. And so I enjoyed going down to the bottom of Old Highway 58, which now dead-ended at the main line when the highway was rerouted, and watching trains and talking about trains. And there are 2 specific things as far as real trains that Larry liked. First was Southern Pacific, because that was the main line that was going by our grandmother's house. And then he also really liked the Burlington Northern Railroad. So green locomotives, primarily in the Northwest or across the northern states, not really down in California. Not BNSF, that's different. But I was always, you're the young cousin. You're fascinated by your older cousins. So one time, probably I was 7, 8 years old. We came down to Santa Rosa on a family vacation, and I was bunked in Larry's bedroom. And at that point, Larry was kind of a teenager, and I was an innocent 7 or 8 year old. And Larry's bedroom was covered with Kiss posters. Which, if you're a little innocent 7 or 8 year old kid, is like, what the hell? But Larry and I still enjoyed talking about trains. And over the next few years, before our grandmother moved away from our house on Hilltop Drive, he would come up and we would go watch trains. And fast forward about 20, 25 years, I think it was about 20 years ago from now, you guys all came up for something, and I had, until recently, had worked for Amtrak, and I knew where the trains were stored in Eugene. So I drove Larry out to the Eugene rail yard, and where we were going was quasi-public, because I'm going to show him the trains, and we could see if there was a giant snowplow that was used up in the Cascades. Sometimes that was out. But we park, and there's a Southern Pacific locomotive, and this is several years after Union Pacific and Southern Pacific merged, and they painted most of the locomotives. But there was still a Southern Pacific locomotive out there, and rather than staying in the car, Larry jumped out of the car and just ran across the rail yard. And it was like, we're not really supposed to be here, and you could get hit by a train. So I had to reel him back in. And we ended up driving out to Hilltop Drive in Pleasant Hill that afternoon to go see what we could see. And I don't remember that we were able to see anything, but I think that's actually the last time I was on Hilltop Drive and at the end of Highway 58. But most recently, the last time I saw Larry, work had sent me down to a week-long seminar at Berkeley, and I flew in a day early, and I came up to Santa Rosa and had dinner with Pat and Nancy and Larry and Samaya and family. And it was a really enjoyable evening. I'm glad I was able to see him. But even then, he and I were debating about the merits of the smart train system here in Marin and Sonoma counties. I came down more firmly on it's a good idea. But that is something that Larry enjoyed throughout his entire life, in addition to a lot of his other passions and pursuits. And it's something that I really enjoyed talking with him about growing up and becoming adults. And it was nice to see that Larry still had a passion for railroads, and he still had a passion for specifically the Southern Pacific and Burlington Northern. One more real quick train thing. We live in an area where Burlington Northern used to run, and BNSF has painted almost all of their locomotives into their paint scheme. But there's a switch job that runs out of Vancouver up the Columbia Gorge to switch mills, and there's often a Burlington Northern locomotive that's still painted in BN green. And so I took a picture of it a couple of years ago, and I sent it to him via Facebook, thinking he might like it. His response was a very detailed listing of exactly the attributes of that specific model of locomotive. So the passion was still there. So I wish he would still be, or we're still here, because we would be still talking about trains and stuff. So it's one of the many reasons I will miss him. So.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm Jeff's sister, so another of Larry's cousins. As children, there were enough years between us, and we lived in different states, that we didn't get a lot of opportunity to have common ground or build that relationship. As we got older, there were a few times that we did get to cross paths, and one of the things Larry and I talked about was the experience of having 3 boys. And family was so important to Larry. I didn't do the trains. I didn't do the hard rock. I didn't have those common areas. But I spent a lot of time out in the woods and out in nature and looking up the birds. And they always make me think of my cousin Larry. Where I walk with dogs and have for years, there's a pair of bald eagles that it's pretty unusual that we get to see them, but now and then they fly. When I'm up on this ridge, they fly really low, and I can hear the air in their wings, and it's just this stunning experience, and I can understand why he loved them so much. My last interaction with Larry was last fall. I was sitting in a chair where I do a lot of writing, and it's by a window, and there was this movement outside, and I looked, and there was this very large, obviously a raptor, that had landed on the fence right outside my window. And I knew I was looking at something beautiful, but I'm not a bird nerd. I didn't know what it was. So I took photos, and then I went and it stayed there because it was eating something kind of gross. So I went and I got my real camera, and like Larry's dad, I have an interest in photography. So I was able to get some beautiful photos. It's a little small, and I apologize, but I got some beautiful photos of this bird. And I put them on Facebook, and I tagged Larry. He's the first person I thought of because he would be the person in my life who would be able to tell me what this beautiful bird is. And it was an adolescent Cooper's hawk, and now I know. So thank you, Larry, and I will always be looking up for the birds for him to visit us.
No, get my money.
Yeah, so good luck with a lot of things. I didn't write anything down, so I don't have Jim to read it for me. I'm Bob's son, again, cousin to Larry. I'm the youngest by far, not quite to 40 yet, so calling out the rest of my cousins with that one. I joined the military right out of high school, so I left home right after I turned 19, and growing up in Eugene, we made trips down to California. I have a terrible memory. I can't remember much of anything from high school or shortly after. But in the later years of my life, reconnecting with family was becoming more and more important. And I started reconnecting with Larry. Again, common grounds. We had trains. We had birds. And I was in the military, and Larry, for some reason, thought that I was some kind of intel genius. And so we spent many of our conversations discussing global powers and where America stands with China and Russia. And I spent most of my time explaining to him that I don't know, I'm an aircraft mechanic. But we had many good conversations, and I felt like we were getting closer. And I keep reminding myself that those conversations that I got with him are very valuable, right? And so many of you in this room have more than just a few conversations that you're going to remember, but the whole world out there that they get to experience the huge amount of love and personality that Larry Broderick brought to all of us. So, like Melissa, every time I see a raptor out there, whether it's a raptor or not, it's a bird, and it's gonna be Larry. So every time I look up and I see, I know what a raptor is, but every time I see Larry out there, it's gonna make me feel good. It's gonna remind me that we're all loved.
Hi, thank you. We're super honored to be here to honor Larry, and this is Grita Jr., or some members of Grita Jr., which is our Santa Rosa-based after-school marimba group, and these are our stars. So we play happy music, and so we just want to return some of the love and joy that the community has for Larry and that we have for him, and share some of the reasons that he's so proud of Tyler and all of these students and all of his family. So it's gonna get energetic in here, so feel free to respond with some energy. Our next song is called Zendakaiwa. We need your help with this song, so prepare your voices. I need your help because I'm going to sing. The students, and Tyler especially, picked the set list, and so we're going for it. So when all you have to say is Maita Seko, can you try it? That's all you have to say, and follow along with them. We'll get it, okay? Who's starting? Dun, 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 dun. Koi? Maya's just starting. Okay, great. I'll be up there. All right, I'll sing it up. Okay, you gotta sing loud from your diaphragm. Here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Pedro Rusk, and Larry and I were tremendously close friends for a very long time. For the last few weeks, have been thinking about what to say up here, so forgive me if I break down a little bit. We were really good friends in the times of the Santa Rosa Bar and Grill, and Larry and myself, Jesse House over here, were roommates for many years. I was lucky enough to be a mountain biking friend with Larry. He was always mad at Jesse and I because we were faster than him on the hills and we scared the birds away, and he shook his fist at us as we mounted the top of the hills. I can understand where his sister comes from with chasing Larry down the hills, because although we were faster than him on the uphills, the guy had a little penchant for going downhill, and you could tell he didn't always wear his helmet when he was younger. It's interesting that he and I share a love of trains. When I was a child, I was raised on the skunk train, and my mother ran the concession stands, and I got to sit in the lap of the conductor every day and toot the horn and do all those different things. And I can remember many nights going down to the East Bay to see the Bleeding Stone and bands like Front 242 and KMFDM, and coming back at like 2 o'clock in the morning and driving through the rail yards of Richmond, where it was far from safe. But Larry needed to see those damn green trains. And we got out of the car and walked around where we probably shouldn't have been, and definitely drove fastly away from some cars that were following us a couple of times. I was really lucky, though, that he and I were tremendous hawk buddies. I accompanied him to some of the first trips up to the Klamath Basin, where we spent many, many mornings, freezing temperatures before dawn, standing there with binoculars, pointing at the sky, looking around, and calling out birds and putting check marks on pieces of paper because it meant everything to us. And the two of us driving around a little pickup truck, listening to industrial music with our binoculars out the windows and having the time of our lives that we didn't realize we were having at that time frame. In the years to come, Larry and I went different directions, but as I look back, I think about him and the tremendous impact he's had on my life. I never realized it. The hawks, the birds, him and I looking at the clouds so we could understand what the wind was doing, so we knew where the bird would be flying next and what hill to drive down out on the coast, where we would go, and the countless hours driving around the Sacramento Wildlife Refuge. I eventually joined the GGRO and started banding hawks, and he got pissed at me because I was catching them and he didn't get a chance to. But, we both shared the enthusiasm. It's been amazing to see Larry and the change in his life and the positive person, and what an amazing father he is. And I see the pictures of him and his children, and what an amazing presence he had. He was always larger than life, and the pictures, the stories all prove it. And that larger than life cast a shadow on all of us that definitely gave an impact to all of us. Just before we walked in, there was a red tail and an adult Cooper's hawk flying around outside, along with a couple of turkey vultures. So they were immatures, but that's okay. He's still with us, and he's out there right now. And as we all go on in our lives, I think, and I hope that we'll see how he has been a tremendous positive impact on all of us in so many different ways. I can see him standing up there still on stage, playing with the Bleeding Stone and yelling, "Lecter!" and him beating drumsticks and breaking them. One of the first and best memories I have of him is we drove out to Occidental. We went out and rode down Coleman Valley, rode down Willow Creek Road and rode up the coast in Coleman Valley. We both bonked. We ran out of water. It was hell. We got back to the car, and it was great. And we had many experiences in that nature where we pushed ourselves and did many different things. I'm really blessed to call Larry a really good friend. He was a brother and a mentor that I didn't realize was. He affected my life and in my job that I have now. My ability for what my job is large in part to the things that he taught me and how to look at life. And now I get to talk to people about the trees and the birds and the wind and grapes and stuff like that. But without the guidance that I had with Larry, I don't think I would be the person I am right now with the way that I'm able to talk about things. So thank you for giving birth to such an amazing person and such a tremendous friend. And what a positive influence this gentleman has been on so many of us. Thank you for your time.
Hi. I get emotional, but my name's Lance, and yeah, Larry, larger than life.
He's larger than life. Let's see. Our children, my oldest, well, my second, Oscar, he played t-ball with LJ. And my style of coaching was, you know, if the kids are out in the field, who cares? And they were all sitting down, and I immediately got Larry's approval. We really met when we did Cub Scouts together. And once again, LJ and Oscar were in the same den, and what a blast that was. Larry and I, you know, I had a really unique relationship with him. Not too many men I bonded with. And, you know, we butt heads several times, just like good friends should. And we had some really memorable moments. He'd always go, "Hey, Lance." And I knew a story was coming. He'd go, "Hey, Lance, there's somewhere out there, you know, and the thing I carved KISS. Here, let me show you, see if it's still there." And it is. It's still out there. We were both drummers. We bonded over that. We both bonded over the KISS. I remember him telling me, "Oh yeah, I had posters of it." I said, "Oh, my parents would. They thought they were the devil, you know." We took my wife and I and Oscar, we took a vacation to Hawaii, and it was just coincidence that Larry, Samae, their family was in Hawaii, and Larry and I got to spend a little bit of time, and it was pretty special. I just want to leave one story that encapsulates Larry, I think, perfect. He goes, "Hey, Lance, when I went to Lewis School, my friends and I, we would collect enough money, 25 cents. We'd crawl underneath the fence, and we would run across the street, and we would get a small fry at A&W. Yeah. I love you, Larry.
My name's Adrian Johnson. I met Larry 10 years ago when I took my family on one of his bird of prey hikes with Solana Land Trust. We'd always been interested in raptors, but it was our first time with an expert. Larry's knowledge, willingness to share, larger-than-life enthusiasm were infectious. His passion, excitement made the hike like going to a sporting event. We came home buzzing from the day, and since then, I've attended and photographed nearly all the hikes every year. Larry and I became good friends, and 7 years ago, I started helping Larry as a document photographer, supporting him during the hikes, and building and managing the West County Hawkwatch website. We had learned that when we were young, we both had birds as pets, as Pat mentioned earlier. Larry with his chickens, with going from regular to exotics. I started with a cockatiel, went to parrots and macaws. We became each other's mentors. He helped me advance my knowledge and encouraged my photography. I can hear him saying, We don't need National Geographic quality. I just need the ID of the bird. I observed his art and science of identifying birds and his method of interaction, teaching people at all levels how to identify birds of prey through some basic and advanced observations. I was a listening board for him to share his thoughts and fears from the fire and the runaway truck incident. I would share my experience and the challenges of raising two now adult children and helped him guide through the diplomacy of working through diverse organizations and challenging personalities. I was fortunate to have a long conversation with Larry the evening of December 30th. We discussed a number of topics, including expanding the West County and Jenner Headlands Hawk Watch efforts. We reminisced about our trip to Klamath Basin in March 2020 and was proposing a possible trip in spring this year. We had planned to meet the next day in search of a rare plumaged red-tailed hawk that was in the farmlands of Solano County, only to receive a call from SME the next morning. Many years ago, a medicine man once told me that hawks and eagles are messengers to the spirit world. I've experienced 2 intimate interactions with red-tailed hawks. A week after my father passed, I was hiking by myself in the hills. A red-tailed hawk flew into the tree above me and started squawking at me. Remembering what the medicine man said, I listened to what the hawk was saying. After a few minutes, the hawk dropped a tail feather and flew away. After Larry left us, I went searching for the red-tailed hawk that we had planned to find. 7 days after Larry's passing, I did find it. I spent some time with the hawk up close, perched on a bar, and then on the wing, capturing some wonderful photographs. As many have said, Larry's presence and memories will be in everyone's mind and heart when we hear and see birds of prey. Keep looking up.
You're fine. Okay, that's fine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Lockett, and I have known Larry and Sime for a while. We both have 3 boys, and we've been in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, now Scouting America, for a very long time. About the time Lance and Holly were transitioning out of Cub Scouts, we looked at each other and thought, well, I guess it's us leading this Cub Scout pack. And for a while, especially during the COVID years where we were trying to keep things together, I would jokingly say, I think it's the Liz and Larry show now, because we were doing everything. He was Cub Master and I was committee chair, and it was so important to Larry and me to keep those kids in the program and going out on hikes and learning about everything. When I don't have anything prepared, but I was just sitting back there thinking about memories of Larry. And, you know, of course, in Scouts and in other environmental groups, leave no trace is a big deal. We would go out on walks and we're telling the kids, you know, take a picture with your mind, don't pick up things. But only Larry could. And he was amazing. He would pick up just the rock with some special salamander and then put the rock back just perfectly so it wouldn't crush the salamander, and showing the kids how to really hear, of course, the birds, and see nature. And I remember going by their house to get some signature for a check, and he'd be like, hold up. It's something bird. I wish I could tell you what it was, but it was just how he was. And, you know, something that I remember most is Larry on the sidelines saying little snarky comments. Like, that was one of his, like, the best things about him. And yet, when it was showtime for those kids or for his family, he was there, 110%. and it was for them. And I just keep thinking, I can just imagine him standing by the doors and saying, you all didn't need to come for me, but being so happy to see everybody. Those are and then of course, memories like with Scouts going out to Sears Point and just being so proud of the work out there, to restore it and to share, like, now I forever think TV when I think turkey vulture. There's just things that he shared with everybody, and that was why he was here. He would even grumble about going to Disneyland, but loving it and posting about it. We all saw that. But he would be like, well, my wife, she has us programmed. But, that was Larry. He was in it. So I guess that's all I have to say, but it's really nice to see everybody here for him because he was out there in the community and making connections.
Hi, my name is Jesse House. I've known Larry for over 30 years. Pedro introduced me to him. All three of us used to ride mountain bikes together. We were roommates for years. I'm just gonna keep this brief, but Larry taught me all about birds, of course, like he did everybody. From like 1998, I don't know, like 2006, every fall and winter, we were going out, almost every weekend, birding. It's amazing time, amazing times. I remember, it was early 2000s, and he was telling me about this lady he was working with. He had a crush on, and this went on for a long while, but finally they got together, and he was really happy. Then you guys have gone on to have raised an amazing family. Yeah.
I don't know how much I'm going to be able to say. My name is Kevin Lonsky. Anybody in Santa Rosa knows me as Shark. So many of my friends over here, Neil, I think he said to me already today, I forgot your name was Kevin. I moved to Santa Rosa September of '89 and started working for the Bike Peddler. And I saw Larry a lot of nights after hours at the shop because we would all trade bike parts, fix up each other's bikes, go on stupid, crazy night rides up in the park before lights were ever around. Just Santa Rosa Bar and Grill, just so many different memories of him and the music. Taking us down to San Francisco to see KMFDM. That blew my mind. Listening to ministry and music like that, I never listened to that growing up as a kid. It was always Barry Manilow, Kiss, or something else. But I'm from Fargo, did high school in Billings, Montana, and then basically came here right after high school, and people ask me where I grew up. It's here. My family is here. That's probably about all I'm going to get out, other than Larry always had your back, always cared, and if he was really frustrated with you, he'd say, whatever, man, it's your world, I'm just living in it. I'm not too sure how many other people he would say that to. But you know what? Fuck you, Larry. It's your world. We are living in it. Thank you.
A lot of people. Biggest group I've ever spoken in front of. First of all, to the family, I'm sorry for your loss. My name's Ron Petrock. I work with Larry. Most of you probably didn't know he had a job. Can you fix that for me? Thank you. So I knew he had a job because whenever he was supposed to be on vacation, he would be at work. And whenever he was at work, I think he might have been on vacation. It was kind of weird because the very last time I saw him was the Sunday before he passed. And I came in Sunday afternoon. I needed to do a few things. And there's Larry. And he was supposed to be on vacation. And his wife was there. And I'd never met you before. And it was a pleasure to meet you that day. But I was kind of in a hurry, doing my thing because I wanted to get the hell out of there. But they were talking about Larry's workstation. And she was helping him figure out how high his monitors were supposed to be and to make it more comfortable for him. And I'm kind of not paying attention because I'm back and forth, buzzing back and forth. And I'm seeing a glimpse into his life, right? So I didn't really know Larry as a family man. I knew him through work. I knew him from his bird stories. But I got a glimpse into his interaction with his family. And it was a cool thing for me to see. And looking back now, I wish I'd asked him more questions about his family. You know, we get in our work lives and we're doing our work thing, and you know, he's telling me about birds and we're supposed to be working. But it was really cool to see who he was as a person more than a coworker. One more quick thing. I'll leave it with two things. So I was hiking in Shiloh Park a few months ago. I kind of do it on the weekends, and I saw a pileated woodpecker, which I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're kind of a big woodpecker. We mostly have acorn woodpeckers. So I was kind of excited to tell Larry, hey, I saw this pileated woodpecker. He's going, oh yeah, I see them all the time. And then he told me all these facts about pileated woodpeckers, and I got bored and walked off. But anyway, the last thing I want to say is we've really noticed Larry's absence. Probably took him for granted a little bit. He was just the guy that was there on Sundays, on Saturdays, 9 o'clock at night. That was Larry. But anyway, I'll walk through the room and I don't see him, and I notice because he was a bigger than life guy. So he's missed by his work family as well as his friends, his normal family. So thanks.
Well, thank everyone who had something to say about Larry. And as an advertisement, if you have a large trailer in your semi-trailer in your backyard, Peterson truck up off of Airport Boulevard probably has a big tractor unit that you could either rent or buy to move it. He loved his job. He really did love the job, selling and leasing trucks and doing that. When my brother Bob came out a couple of months ago, he took us on a tour of the back lot. And was the first time really that I had seen the back lot. And it was impressive. Did a lot of looking up at heavy equipment. Okay, so we're just about gone. Program. In your program, on the back of the program is an email that Larry sent out. It was email or YouTube. Well, he sent it out anyway. After our Christmas in December, we had all of our family, Larry and Lori and Jim and Shimei and all the 4 grandchildren and our new great-grandchild Nora was there, and Auntie Kay sitting back there was there, and we had just bought a new table, and it was big enough finally after all of those decades for everyone to sit around. And so Larry wrote, "Hope everyone had a joyful and blessed Christmas. We had one of the best times ever. My immediate and extended family. I am truly blessed, thankful, and grateful that I was able to help a few people out this year with support and compassion. I believe what comes around goes around. Karma is king in my eyes. Please keep thinking of others when your cup runneth over. Sharing is caring. Giving is living." Thank you. It's been a celebration of life weekend for Nancy and me. Yesterday we attended a celebration for our very good old friend and my longtime colleague at the college, Ed Buckley. Ed passed away from Alzheimer's, or the result of that, and he and Jean had moved to Pasadena to be closer to family, so we haven't seen them for a while. And it was the emails back and forth, and then they didn't come from Ed any longer. And so, when Larry died, Jean suggested a book that was helpful to her. And it happens, if you turn in the book to February 23, there's a passage, and I typed it out, if I can hold it together, in bigger print. It begins, "It may be that some little root of a sacred tree still lives. Nourish it then, that it may leaf and bloom and fill with singing birds." That was written by a black elk in his book early in the 1950s. And it goes on. It talks about a friend whose son had died, tells me of how in a woodsy glade, a bird previously unknown to the region perched on a high limb in a shaft of light and sang. She said, excuse me, sorry. She said that while she continued to have times of great loneliness, never again did she question her son's continuing love, and presence, or that ultimately she would be reunited with him. And then it finishes. May I now see the sacred tree and hear the sound of singing birds. So I gotta do it. I got to do it. All right. Okay. And finally, a poem. I've written several poems recently. The occasion for this poem is today. Somewhere a lonely locomotive whistles, wailing in the darkening sunset. It passes a red-tailed hawk sitting on an abandoned telegraph wire. The EMD, hauling 100 cars, snakes its way into the dark. As the hawk swoops down, talons seeking evening dinner. Binoculars dangling from his neck. The birding guide points out a kestrel hidden among the branches, while a soaring eagle searches. Before trotting up the path into the fog, hiding the next raptor, trailed by several dozen birders, listening to the far away whistle. Okay. According to the program, it's time for me to say goodbye. And I want to thank you on behalf of Larry's extended family. I want to thank you on behalf of his many, many, many friends. And I want to thank you for being part of his life. I think it was really, really important to him, and it remains really, really important to his family. So thank you for being here today. Yes, there are in the back. There are some refreshments if you care to partake, and of course, it's a time to talk to each other and be happy that we're here together. So thank you.